You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Mountain Gardener, local garden advice for the mountains of Arizona. And we are into the peak of the garden season now. What you'll find right now, and we're seeing this wave of customers coming, two types of customers. One, bugs. So they're seeing things being eaten, things are happening. Tomato worms are out. I may have a solution for that. So I've got an interview coming up. We've got just leaf hoppers and grasshoppers and caterpillars, and everything grows better when the rains come. Your plants look better. You're seeing them relieved. So, but then again, like on aspens, we're seeing leaf spot, this black tip, black ring going after aspens, poplars, willows, very common. Flea beetles are in. So your plants are growing faster, but so are leaf diseases, and so are insects. So be careful. It's kind of a greenhouse effect. Those of you that have greenhouses, you realize this. Everything, you can get things to grow faster, better, stronger than you can out in the gardens because you've got this greenhouse. Well, with the afternoon rains, the humidity, the cloud cover, it creates this huge greenhouse over us where bugs can take over your greenhouse within a week. Aphids are just everywhere. Spider mites are everywhere. Well, we're all in this greenhouse together now because it's just the perfect growing environment. That's why if you were thinking of planting a new, let's say, summer blooming butterfly bush or crepe myrtles, they look better now. This is when they're like rock stars. They love that summer heat, the warm evening air, a little bit of rain, and just the long days. They just bloom better. If you were to plant one of those now, they would root better. They would grow stronger. They would continue to bloom right through the fall season. Well, everything grows better right now. So trees, if you're planting a tree, let's say a fruit tree, this is your time to plant a fruit tree to set the stage for next spring's bloom. Everyone wants to wait and plant bare root in the spring. It's the best time. No, it's not. It's almost the worst time. In northern Arizona, you plant it, it's hardly got any roots to it. It leaves out. Now it's exposed to dry, windy air. It starts to set a fruit, and it just struggles. If you plant now a fruit tree, no, it's not going to have fruit on it this year, but it will have time to root out. I mean, a full root structure now through the end of the year. It'll actually take all those leaves and store up that starch and all the sugars in the root zone, creating even more roots. It will set leaf buds and flower buds for next spring, and then it will leaf out and form flowers and form fruit, and you'll actually have a harvest next year. What the book says is you shouldn't allow plants, fruiting edible plants, whether it's grapes or blackberries or apples, pears, cherries, plums, whatever it is, you shouldn't let it harvest. You shouldn't let it load up with fruit the first year because it's either fruiting or it's rooting. And so you want that thing to root the first year. Well, if you're planting now, there is no fruit. It's forming, all of those sugars are forming new root hairs around into your gardens. And so now you can allow that plant to load up, whether it's an apple or a pear or figs are loaded right now. Pomegranates have fruit on them. Those things you can root out, let them go, let them get established, and then you're ready to go even stronger next season. This is a planting season for us. It's also a growing season, which means everything grows better. So just the main point being, one thing I'm really watching for, actually I'm watching for one thing and I'm struggling with the other. Should I share the struggle? Yes, even the mountain gardener struggles in his gardens. In fact, I've had budworms. I mean, I'm a flower guy. I love growing flowers. That's my therapy. I unplug from the phone. I don't check emails. Nothing. I'm just out there in the garden and I'm harmonizing. I'm just treating with care my flowers. And I enjoy the fragrance and the colors and the butterflies and hummingbirds. That's kind of my way to unwind. That's my therapy. And yes, I'll go out and pick a few tomatoes and eat them while in the garden. I love growing big, giant pumpkins. But that's more of a longevity thing. Flowers you touch and feel and connect with immediately right now. Giant pumpkins, yeah, it's fun to watch them grow a foot a day. The vines, and to watch this huge fruit come on. But that's a vision of what's in the fall. It's not right now. You can't pick a dahlia blossom and pull it inside and float it in a crystal bowl for a week. And then that's like enjoyment right now. Tomatoes, admittedly, I've had cherry tomatoes like crazy. Tomatoes are coming off really well right now. And so my mouth's watering just thinking of the tomatoes coming up. So popping these things in, they're like candy in the garden. So you don't have to go inside for lunch. You just eat your way through the gardens. That's a little bit like that, but flowers are my thing. Bud worms are my nemesis right now. I can't believe it. They're eating my flower. I'm seeing little tiny holes in my flowers, petunias and geraniums specifically, calipricoa. There's certain things I really like. So I've just gotten frustrated where this is like I'm going all marine on them, shock and awe, hit them with everything I got. And so I've mixed up Through-Side, or BT. I've got a pump-up sprayer. It's pressurized, a little tiny handheld thing. And I go through, and once a week, right now I'm saying I'm not waiting to see the damage. I'm just going, there will be damage. I'm coming after you right now. Don't mess with the lane gardens, or there's death and decay for you and all of your family if you're caterpillar eating my flowers. And so I just once a week spritz, actually this week twice, because I had an outbreak. I'm spritzing for budworms. Oh, cute little, actually on my purple petunias, they're actually purple caterpillars. They're really kind of neat. I really hate to kill them, but BT is safe for my hummingbirds. It's safe for butterflies. It's safe for everything, the dogs, the kids, my wife, everyone, except caterpillars. So I go through and spray the foliage, things that they're going to digest and eat. And then they eat this, makes them sick to their stomach. They stop eating and finally starve to death. That's one thing I'm struggling with right now. I know that with the rains comes beetles. You're seeing beetles starting to fly around. I was just playing an Instagram post, Facebook post. I just posted a Palo Verde beetle, huge, long, 3-inch beetle, and I'm playing with it going, remember playing with this as a kid? I love beetles. Did you ever fly them around with a string in the air? Got a lot of reaction, but beetles, I know once the beetles hatch, beetles only come out to do one thing. In fact, most beetles don't even have a mouth part. They only have one part, and it's there to reproduce. That is it. So they're out laying eggs. And so there's 2 sections of my gardens where I struggle with grubs. I see these white worms, these white C-shaped worms, and they eat the roots off of your gardens. They eat the roots off of your trees, your shrubs. They can decimate. They can get so bad that literally the tree will fall over in the wind. I've seen that more than once. Not gophers, grubs have done this. I've seen fully mature rhododendrons die within a week because the grubs ate all the roots. There's 2 sections, 2 areas where beetles like to lay eggs, and the eggs become grubs. That's the larva stage of beetles. Well, I just know they're going to come. I know they're going to happen every year. And so in those areas, I'm preventative. I don't want to see a grub and then react. I want to prevent grubs from ever eating a single root. That's their diet. They eat the roots off your plants. There I put a grub killer. There's a granular spray that you put out there. Not spray, granular spray. That's not even a thing. A granular thing I run through my hand spreader, and I spread it out in those areas where I just have had grubs in the past. As a preventative measure, I sprinkle grub killer down for the next 6 to 9 months. It kills off any grubs that are there, then keeps them away. And so it's highly effective. So I've been doing that because I just know with this rain, the grubs are going to be ferocious this fall and next spring. That's when the damage is really done. Got a lot in store this show for you. Lisa Waterslane coming in with your garden questions in just a moment.
You're listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, also known as the Mountain Gardener. Ken can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Listen each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to mountain landscapes.
I hate weeds. Monsoon rains are so refreshing, even my landscape comes alive, but so do my weeds. Stop weeds in their track in one simple step. Waters Weed and Grass Stopper spreads like fertilizer. It kills weed seed before monsoon rains allow them to sprout. No need to weed. It's safe for trees, even flower beds, and so much safer than that toxic waste the big box sells. Weed and Grass Stopper, it's just $24 and only found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
Ouch! Aw, man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. You got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now, welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
And we are back with Lisa Waterslane in the studio. She brings your garden questions, just what's going on in your neighbor's yard. And many times the same thing is happening in yours. And so we thought this would be a way to capture this and be strategic so you can learn. So some of the garden classes, the best where people really hang out is after the class where they surround whoever the speaker is and ask questions. You can just listen in. Mm-hmm. And so welcome to the studio, Lisa.
Thank you.
So should we share kind of our tourist travel piece?
Oh, I'm sure people are just completely interested in our traveling.
Don't anticipate.
They can't turn away.
This isn't just information; it's infotainment. So we had an anniversary last week. So happy 31st.
Thank
One
you.
last belated until next year. You won't hear it again.
After that, it's it.
It's right. No more. I love you. No more happy anniversary. No nothing till your
No more
birthday,
presents,
and that's already done.
Yeah, that's true.
So anyway, I guess we got Christmas. We took a tourist day. Mm-hmm. We left our house, drove like a mile and a half, went to a hotel, stayed at the Grand Palace Hotel. Did I get that?
Highland.
Grand Highland Hotel, right on Whiskey Row.
Which this is embarrassing. I'm a Prescott native. I did not know it was there.
I didn't either. So obscure. It's a doorway in between all the shops on Whiskey Row. I mean, right at the courthouse. It's just this one door, and you have to really look for it. And then it's got a keypad. It almost looks like an apartment building, but it's upstairs above the shops, right there by that courtyard where they have weddings and parties and stuff. It's right next door. Yeah. So we stayed there. Cute little boutique hotel.
It was fun.
Yeah, funky.
People were very pleasant to work with. Good experience.
The rooms were exceptionally comfortable, or not comfortable like
they're not
Marriott.
Huge.
They're not huge, but the beds are very comfortable. The bathroom is cutesy, 1800s, whatever. The hallways are narrow. I mean, you don't want to meet anyone on the hallways. Two suitcases can't go by each other, but that's the way it was back in the day. Yeah. But the staff, if you are listening, you all are exceptional. We travel the world. You all were exceptional right here in our own backyard. Yeah, so well done.
Very professional, very pleasant.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed
Went
that.
to dinner down at, was that Farm to Table or?
Farm Provisions.
Farm Provisions. I knew I'd blunder that one. I should read the menu better. Had a tuna, you had a filet, just really right on the square there at
that was excellent.
Montezuma and
it's kind of a newer restaurant in town.
Yeah, very good stuff.
Very nice.
So I think sometimes we forget to act like a tourist in our own hometown.
Oh, definitely.
Some people that are tuned in, they haven't even been to the Grand Canyon yet. They've been living here for how many years? Come on. You got to take the Verde River train. You got to go to Sedona. You've got to enjoy the time. So we just took a day and just one night went to dinner and then went to the farmer's market down at Yavapai College.
Which I've never done.
We went down to the other farmer's market on the courthouse, which is the same thing. Just fun, but I like hanging out with you, just relaxing.
It was fun. Very enjoyable. It was still early we went out, so the crowds hadn't taken over the town yet. So.
Yeah. We should share with people, we actually were in business together before we were even married. Business partners. And we would save up the money that we made. We're ASU students. I'm a business grad. You're a special education grad. Mm-hmm. And so we're enjoying each other. We're going, oh, we don't quite have enough money. We're starving kids. What should we do? Start a business, because I'm a business guy. And so I would advertise in the local ASU paper, and then we'd get clients, and we would reproduce your wedding flowers that were live in silk, so you could have them in forever and ever. I'm sure there's some closet dust covered now.
Some might be burned. We'd
take the money and go eat at the finest restaurants in Scottsdale without looking at
For us, they were the finest.
We just go and look at a price.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Don't poo-poo my memory.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, we've been in business together ever since.
And we're still married.
For good or bad. And we're still married. I know. We've decided to get married. It's probably why we're still married. Because we did that beforehand.
Yeah. So, but yeah, memories.
We should go to garden questions, shouldn't
we?
Not
people
anniversary.
are going, well, they just shut
I know.
up.
I just want to know about plants.
So Mary had a question about her nectarines. The fruits are cracking in the skin. What would cause that, and what can she do next year to prevent that from happening again?
That's kind of unique to dry climates. So that cracking of fruit, tomatoes will do that, peaches can do that, apricots, different pitted fruits, more so than apples and pears. But what happens is the fruit is plump in the evening, so it loads up with water, and then during the day the fruit shrinks because it's dry and it's arid, and then you'll water it again going, oh, the tree looks dry, and so you water it so the fruit will plump back up, and so this swelling and then shrinking causes this crack to form, and so that's very common. It can also cause the skin to be a little bit thicker or tougher or more than you've had in other parts of the country where it was more humid. And so things you can do, be more consistent with watering. So that's one thing. So water in the morning. Make sure the tree is hydrated going into the heat of the day. This is critical. These are things we have to do here. You don't do, let's say, down in Phoenix. There you water in the evening. Here we want to water early morning, pre-dawn, before 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, it's hot. So you want to make sure that plant has time to hydrate and take that moisture up to the fruits. That's number one thing. As the tree gets larger, it starts to shade itself better. So maybe it's a maturity thing. Fertilize it with the all-purpose food. Try to get more growth out of it this summer so that next spring's crop will have more protection. Just age will help a lot. And then if you really get into fancy, if you're into farmer's market, I want exotic, perfect, pristine fruits, you can cover them with bags. You can do all kinds of fancy stuff to shade the plant. That kind of, I think that's more than most people actually want to do for a backyard garden. But really just watch the watering, fertilize, push the growth. And then once it's mature enough, you won't have that issue again.
Okay, good answer. So Janet has a butterfly bush that is out of control, which certainly happens with some butterflies. She would like to know, can she prune it this time of year?
No, don't do it. Enjoy the blossoms. You've waited this long. It was out of control probably 2 years ago. You've waited this long. Enjoy the blossoms. I guess the technical answer is yes, you can prune it, but you'll lose all the flowers and all the enjoyment. Why not wait a month or two? Enjoy the flowers, and then come next winter. Generally, we're pruning back those summer bloomers after the new year. Well, shoot, we're just 5 months away. So why not just wait and enjoy the flowers and the butterflies, enjoy it. And then next winter, January, February, March, butcher the thing. I mean, just cut it back to hip high. Certain varieties of butterfly bush are more notorious for taking over. The dark nights, some of your reds, they get quite large. In fact, anymore, we no longer have a butterfly bush that's of normal, what your grandparents grew. We've got the dwarfed varieties, the shorter varieties, things that only get hip high. So there's a whole nother series of plants that you can plant now that don't get large. And we did it mainly because they've got the same flower. They've got more exotic colors to pick from, but mainly they don't get large. Mm-hmm. So I would say that for Rose of Sharon. Just at a client's house, give them a consult. Their Rose of Sharon was taller than their first-story house. A two-story house, it'll go 2 stories if they don't do something. So prune those things back. Keep them under control. There's no reason that a Rose of Sharon or any of these fancy hibiscus should be above head high. Mm-hmm. So just keep them in check. Let them prune them back. What else? I would say lilacs. But you don't prune lilacs now. You prune them right after they're done blooming. Right now they're setting buds. If you're to prune that back now or the first of the year, you'll cut all the flowers off. Mm-hmm. So wait to prune those back and then really butcher them. Really get them under control. So yes, you can prune it now, but you'll lose all the flowers until next summer. Wait until the first of the year and then really cut it back hard. Ken and Lisa Lane and the Mountain Gardeners. We've got a lot of great advice coming up, but you got to stay tuned.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Ken here with the plants of the week and our pink volcano phlox.
Just when spring flowers are fading, these beauties revive and show off.
Your grandmother only dreamed of growing a pretty pink phlox this fine.
Each flower cluster could make a bridal bouquet all by itself.
This new volcano series is erupting with flowers used to accent entries and fountains, all for $15.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott. For people who love eruptions of pink flowers, they love to shop. Hi, Lisa here with the plants of the week and our lavender chiffon hibiscus.
This hardy variety is one of the longest blooming, most prolific shrubs, showing off massive 4-inch lavender flowers all summer long.
This stately bush likes to show off, and all for $39.
But wait, there's more. These pretty shrubs come back again next year with even more stunning beauty.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love stunning hibiscus, they love to shop.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
If you've got that new home and you're in from the Midwest, so you're moving from lots of Chicago, Indiana, lots of Midwest or Wisconsin folks moving this way. It seems like that part of the country either moves to Florida or to Arizona. We love seeing Arizona. Welcome to Arizona. It's God's country. Why would you move to hurricane country when you could live in God's country? That's my thought. But anyway, we're seeing quite a few folks. And their thinking is, I just moved into my house, or the move-in dates, September 1. I've missed the planting season, but I really am a gardener. I would like to plant. Or I've got a neighbor right there off the back patio of this new home, and I just want a screen. I want something up there growing, but I've missed the planting season. Absolutely not. You are in the peak. Your timing's perfect. If you love lilacs from the Midwest, they're famous for their lilacs. You can plant a lilac right now. In fact, they're starting to show buds. Plant it now. It would continue to root, continue to bud, and it will be full-on glory. Fragrance and beauty next spring. Lilacs bloom middle of March through April, May, depending on your elevation, where you're at. They'll bloom a little earlier. If you're down in the Camp Verde, Cottonwood, Sedona area, Kirkland, Baghdad, the lower elevations, they'll bloom a little later. If you're in Groom Creek, Highland Pines, up Seligman, those areas were a little bit more exposed, colder. They'll just be 2-3 weeks delayed. But they will always bloom in that spring season. Most folks wait until they see them blooming, then they come in and buy them. And then they go, I want one of those. It's in full bloom at the nursery, which is great. You can pick it by fragrance and color. But when you plant it, it has some transplant shock, or you're at the end of the bloom cycle, and it just drops its blooms. If you plant now, you get to enjoy the entire bloom season without any transplant shock. It's more rooted. You get more flowers by doing that. Your timing could not be better. I've got some beautiful weeping pussy willows. Super unusual. A tree-formed forsythia. Very unusual specimens. You plant those now, and they will be in full color next spring. If you're doing trees, especially fruiting or blooming trees, let's say purple robe locust. It's this beautiful flower that has this wisteria flowers that drop about Mother's Day. Almost count on it. That first week in May, it goes into full bloom. Everyone buys them. Then that's the number one time we stock up ready for it. But if you could plant it now, you'd have a larger tree, better shade next summer season, but you'll have more flowers next Mother's Day. Arizona is kind of unique that way because of our mild climate and our summer rains. It creates this second season. You would never do that in the deserts. I mean, if you're from Phoenix or Tucson or Palm Springs, you're scratching your head going, I've never heard of such a thing. That's crazy man talk. No, can't happen. But up here, it's perfect. It really works out well for us. Now, here's the thing that happened last winter. Here's some things where you made some mistakes. We went through a drought cycle where the last rain was in the 1st of November, and we didn't see rain again until June, July. When did the monsoons start? About 3-4 weeks ago? If you let your landscape go from November through basically early summer without any moisture, you didn't add anything. You turned your drip system off in November. You didn't turn it back on until May. You saw you had some death and decay. Just did a consult for a client. They had 3 dead trees, 2 dead shrubs, and some native evergreens that died. And you're going, Ken, what happened? I don't understand. These things are like 5 years old. I've never had this problem. What's going on? I'm going, drought stress. Well, it can't be. I've never watered in the winter. I'm going, well, it was a dry winter. You always had Mother Nature helping you. What killed us? Drought stress, drought stress, drought stress. If you're planting now, do not rely on nature to help you water things. Make sure you keep them irrigated. Hand water. If you turn your drip system off in November, many of us do. I do not, but some people do. And then if the drip system's off, the plants get no water other than what nature gives them. You will struggle. You'll lose some things, whether they're brand new planted or well established, like we saw last winter. Watering once, twice a month. That's all you got to do. Just supplement a little bit, and it makes a huge difference. And so we saw a lot of damage. Now, as a garden center owner, I like 5-year-old trees to die because you got to go replace it, or you can't keep a dead thing in the yard because it just brings you down. You got this $500,000 house and you have got these dead plants. That's not good. So you got to replace it. But I would much, for my friends, I advise you, I don't want you to have dead plants. I want your plants to survive and thrive. And the secret to that is fertilizing in October, the fall fertilizing, and watering through winter. If you do those 2 things, plant with vigor right now, because you know you've got beautiful plants that will survive through winter, come back next spring and just be twice their size because you've got the spring growth on your side. That's the insider tip I can give you right now for the mountains of Arizona.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
In a new place, it's difficult to know who to trust, how to get help at the house, and which nursery will simply do what they say they'll do.
At Waters Garden Center, we're here to help, in the landscape at least.
Our team of plant ambassadors know your neighborhood, the plants that add color, increase privacy, and add fragrance and beauty.
And we can show you exactly how to plant locally, or we have teams to do all the work for you.
We are Ken and Lisa Lane, and we guarantee our plants will live up to every promise here at Waters Garden Center.
I hate weeds. Monsoon rains are so refreshing, even my landscape comes alive, but so do my weeds. Stop weeds in their track in one simple step. Waters Weed and Grass Stopper spreads like fertilizer. It kills weed seed before monsoon rains allow them to sprout. No need to weed. It's safe for trees, even flower beds, and so much safer than that toxic waste the big box sells. Weed and Grass Stopper, it's just $24 and only found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott. And we're back in the studio with Lisa Waters Lane coming in, and she's sharing her garden tips. We're partners together in this thing called Waters Garden Center. And I've got a certain angle or way or things that I like. I love killing bugs. I like killing things. Gophers, weeds. I'm the master of death. That actually sounded bad to my Asian friends. That's terrible. Sorry. And then I like growing trees. I love trees, big trees. And flowers. That's kind of my thing. And tomatoes. I guess I got more than just one thing. And then you love the perennials and herbs. Container gardens. You've got over 50 pots. I'm afraid to count how many containers we have. And that's not including our raised beds. That's just pots, things in pots. So the whole front patio, back patio is very welcoming. That's your thumbprint on our lives, our house. So we want to capture some of that and share our different passions. And so this segment's all for you and your passions.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So listening to you make that thing, I'm like, you're the Archie Bunker of garden centers.
I'm surprised the owners of the station don't cut me off at the knees. I'm not racist or anything. I like voices, and I have voices in my head, and I like to share them with the folks. It's the old actor in me. I don't know, just coming out, and I know. Sometimes I should. I love the taste of my feet too. I like to stick them both in and just go, yo, look good. Anyway, I'm fun at parties too. Give me a beer in my hand, or I'm a little bit tired. Get me in the South, and that Southern accent comes back really easily. And so I've just lived in a lot of places where there were different accents, and I just enjoy people with different accents. I'm the one that picks up on if you're from some other part of the country or world. I can talk to you, and I actually understand what you're saying, even though the thickest of accents from France. I got it. And so it's interesting, the stories people tell and the accents, the cultures they bring. Just super interesting.
Yes. Just don't talk in voices.
Okay. For this week. Not anymore for this week. I promise. Maybe. Well, I don't know.
Okay, new topic. So this time of year, one of the biggest questions I get asked all the time is, can I still plant trees?
True, yeah.
And the answer is, of course you can. And you're moving into a wonderful time to plant trees. The humidity's higher, the soils, we've gotten some rains, you can actually dig in your soil. It's just a really good time to plant. And I don't know where this concept of we can only plant in spring came from, but we need to dispel that.
I think that's Midwest or more northern climates. They need to have the entire season to get things strong enough before winter hits.
Hey, good point.
Our winters aren't that. They aren't, or at Phoenix. Right. It's just, who would live down there? Who lives 10 miles from the sun? It's 110 or more. Who would do that? Move away. Come up to God's country, for goodness sake.
Are you done?
Not really, but I'll listen now. So I've got the soapbox out next to the chair today. I just want to go for it.
But I thought we would talk about fruit trees, because a lot of people love to plant fruit trees, but they always think about it in the spring.
Yeah.
And yes, it's a great time to plant then, but this is a wonderful time to plant. So definitely, if you're thinking maybe I want to put some fruit trees in, now's the time to do it.
I would say even that now's even a better time for pitted fruits. Sometimes the pitted fruits, they get tricked into coming out early in spring. Now they're fully leafed, then that last frost or snow comes, and they take in the shorts. They really, they can be killed even if they're really exposed to the higher elevations. Now, there's none of that. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's only when it's first planted in spring, when it's young and it leaves out and gets tricked into coming out too early. Now, there's none of that for another 3 months. We don't have any kind of cold, just growing season ahead of us.
Right. So it can definitely root out, get some more growth on it, go through winter, and then come out in spring and be rooted and ready to rock and roll.
And loaded with fruit.
Loaded with fruit. So a lot of people are coming from different parts of the country. They're asking what fruit trees grow here. So we always pretty much say you're most likely to get fruit off your apples and your pears. Is that correct?
Why is that?
I'm asking you, mountain gardener.
Well, it's because I didn't know. I forgot which way the baton was going. I mainly because they're the last ones to fruit, to leaf out and to bloom in spring. So apples are always, and pears are the very, very last fruit tree, and they almost never get tricked into blooming early. So the very first fruit tree to bloom is apricots. Mm-hmm. Usually they're the ones that get tricked the most. And so they'll go, oh, it's been beautiful for 3 weeks. Spring is here. I'm gonna leaf out and form flowers and fruits. And then come a month later, that last frost takes the fruit, and it's a beautiful tree, just with no fruit. You're planting fruit tree for fruits.
Right. So yeah, definitely if you're really into that fruit thing, your peaches and your apples would be your best. If you're limited, start with those guys.
That's true.
The other thing to think about, and this is kind of true of most all the fruit trees, if you only have room for one, or you only want one apple or one peach, make sure it's self-pollinating.
That's a good point, yeah.
Because they are not all self-pollinating. I don't know how many times people come in, they go, oh, we've had this fruit tree in our yard for 7 years, no fruit. And it's like, well, is there other fruit trees nearby? Do we have a pollination issue? And they're like, I don't know. Do they need one?
Yeah, yes, they do. Can I add to that too, though? I would say because of the influence from Phoenix or the desert areas, I see a lot of varieties that should not be sold in this area. Mm-hmm. And so you need a lot of chilling hours. You need fruits that bloom later in spring. Right. So if you're planting something that came up out of Phoenix, or citrus, that's even more disastrous. It won't winter over. Yep. You need plants that can take the frost and bloom later than most. So you got to really do your homework, or buy from friends, Ken and Lisa Lane, who have done some research, and just we curate down to fruits that do well here.
Right. I mean, all of our trees have the higher chill hours, as high as we can get for whatever variety of tree. But you're right. Go into some reputable nursery who's going to tell you, that tree needs a pollinator. You're going to have two. Or, no, that Granny Smith, that's a great apple. It's self-pollinating. Don't worry about it. You'll be good. So you definitely want some good advice when you're picking your trees. Cherry trees, they do excellent here. And a lot of people, for some reason, think we can't grow cherries.
Oh, it's there's actually a wild cherry that just grows in the forest. If you see a white blooming tree just in the wild, that's always a cherry tree. Mm-hmm. And so that they do exceptionally well. In fact, if you're going to kill a cherry, it'll be from overwatering it. Yeah. It doesn't like the clay soil. It's on an area that just stays gooey. It doesn't like that. It's drought hardy.
Yeah. And very pretty when they bloom in the spring. All of the fruit trees are really pretty when they bloom. So definitely nice to have in the yard. So yes, we can definitely do cherries, Bings, Stellas, Mount Morency's, Rainiers, Lapins, Vans. There's a bunch of them that do well here.
Big, sweet, you just made my mouth water. Great big size of a quarter or huge marble size cherry. It does sour cherries, sweet cherries, dark cherries, light cherries. We've got them all. You can plant them now and they'll fruit.
Mm-hmm. So then we get into nectarines and plums and peaches. They're all in that prunus family. I guess cherries are too, actually.
Apricots as well.
Apricots. So all of them will grow well here. There again, it kind of goes back to those chill hours, making sure you're getting one that has the longest chill hours possible so that you have the best success possible with them.
On that point, plums. I used to, as a kid, my grandmother would let me take the salt shaker out to the plum tree.
On a plum?
When they were green. If you take a green plum and salt it, it like melts in your mouth. It's so delicious. It seems it's a southern thing. I'm sorry. Green plums.
Southern people.
There's so many plums. I know. The other one to watch, though, is everyone's got that dry wash at the bottom of the property. Don't put fruit trees there. Cold air settles down there. Put it up further on the property line, up taller, up next to the house, next to the lawn, next to the rock lawn, where it radiates some more heat.
Right.
And now you're more likely to set fruit consistently throughout the years.
Right.
So we've got more on this whole section of fruit trees. We could show you, walk you around. But thank you, Lisa, for being in.
Sure.
Ken and Lisa Lane and the fruit trees that grow in the mountains of Arizona.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Forsythia already flowered?
Lilacs languishing in the heat?
Spring bloomers already pooped? Butterfly bushes are going strong and rebloom all summer long.
Pollinators like butterflies and hummingbirds love butterfly bush for their fantastic fragrance and bright summer colors.
These tough head-high beauties love summer sun and bloom nonstop.
Fresh new plants just arrived at the place where people who love butterflies and butterfly bushes, they love to shop.
Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
Hi, Ken here with the plants of the week and our lavender shades blooming Pinta.
One of the best butterfly attracting plants. It's right up there with milkweed, only prettier.
Hummingbirds have to dance around all the butterflies of this deeply colored summer bloomer.
Plant a few in the vegetable garden to attract pollinators that help tomatoes and squash set more fruit, all for under $10.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love to garden, they love to shop. And we are back with the Mountain Gardener. And one of the beauties of having a studio in the garden center is as you run across interesting characters, you get to interview them. So you go, hey, that's an interesting subject. And so tomato worms, the green horned tomato worms, they're out. I don't know if you've seen a moth that's flying around that looks like a hummingbird. That's what a green horned tomato worm turns into, that moth. So she's been laying eggs in the last few weeks in your garden, and they're going to show up. Well, I have a guest speaker in the studio, Harold Waters. Yes, he happens to be my father-in-law. Yes, he was the founder of Waters Garden Center. And yes, he does have decades and decades of garden experience. He goes, Ken, I was just dealing. Yesterday I didn't have green tomato worms. Today I did. I couldn't believe how bad they were. I said, Harold, how'd you deal with that? You've got to share that with our audience. So, Harold, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah. I appreciate being here and sharing what I learned about this little nasty creature. You know, I was just thinking, all the years that I've lived in Prescott and I've moved from Ohio to Arizona, I have dealt with green horned tomato worms.
So they're a national phenomenon.
They're just a natural problem. And if you have tomatoes, you'll have them. And if you don't have tomatoes, they maybe eat something else around the yard, maybe even some weeds. But, of course, it's best known, as you mentioned already, as the sphinx moth worm. And it's around right now, that cute little thing that looks like a hummingbird that flies around the yard, particularly in the evening, and is gathering nectar out of the and laying eggs all around the garden and the flowers and things like that. That is the adult form, the flying form of that green-horned tomato worm. They look cute and are nice, and there's probably not much reason to worry about the ones that fly around in the evening, because the ones that are such a vicious little creature are those darn green-horned tomato worms. Just to give you an idea how bad they are, yesterday I was out checking my tomato plants, making sure they were well watered and everything okay, and everything was fine. Everything was cool, as the kids would say. Well, I got ready to come into town today, and I thought, well, I better just go take a look at my tomatoes. And I couldn't believe there was a bunch of skeletons out there in my skeleton tomatoes out there, because the green-horned tomato worm had come in there and gotten busy late yesterday and over that and really working on my plants. And my first thought was, I looked, where are they at? And I looked and I looked and I couldn't find them. And they're about the same color as the plant itself.
That's right.
They're really hard to find. And finally I found one, and then I got my eye trained, and then I found 5 or 6 more before I got through in pretty short order. And I was in a hurry to get into town, so I'm sure I didn't get them all. But this little creature will clean off your tomato plants in a hurry if you let them go. And usually they don't kill the plant, but they just take away its ability to produce more fruit and bigger fruit because they're eating the leaves off your plants. They leave just those skeletonized stems. So they're pretty easy to identify the fact that they've been there. The hard part is finding them. And the next part's not so hard, getting rid of the little pests.
Yeah.
And
how'd you get rid of them?
Well, I think the best product are the biological products rather than using a chemical spray. And the one that seems to be quite popular now, I noticed this on your shelf, is Captain Jack's Dead Bug Spray.
Yeah.
And this is a biological spray. And there's quite a story even behind that. You'll have to tell your customers and your radio friends a little more about that someday. But Captain Jack brought us a product into the country that is a biological material. By that I mean there's no chemicals involved with it as such. It is a disease that affects the crawling insects like caterpillars and tomato worms and things that are of that nature. And what it does is it paralyzes their digestive tract. It doesn't kill them by poisoning them. It actually starves them to death. Once they have this and they eat some of it when it's on the foliage, they quit eating it a little bit and they just sort of starve to death. And they never finish their life cycle, which is going to be an adult and laying more eggs.
Yeah.
So Captain Jack's would be the one product I think I would try. It's a fairly new name on the market, but it's an excellent one and should do a good job for your customer.
I found budworms on my petunias last night as well. So I had this beautiful petunia, huge basket. It's got to be 3 feet around. It was in glorious color 2 weeks ago. And I'm going, doggone it. What is going on with my flowers? I've been fertilizing them. I get to looking closely, exactly what you did. A little worm is dancing his head up and down, looking at me, going, hey, don't look at me. I'm not here. I'm not here. I'm going, you little booger. So I cut him in two with my pruners. So that's the one I could find. They're a little shorter. They're maybe 1 inch long instead of that 3-inch green worm that's on your tomato. And then I sprayed the Captain Jacks on the rest of it, just for the ones that I missed, I just spritzed the flowers. And I'm sure within a week, they'll be in full bloom again. They'll look good. As soon as I can take that pressure off the flowers, they'll come back for me. Same with your tomatoes. As soon as you can get the pressure off, you lost foliage, and it will affect your blossoms, your blooms, your fruit size. As soon as you can take that pressure off, they come right back and actively grow.
Right. I say it doesn't. Usually, tomato worms will not kill the plant. They just set it back, and you're usually losing some fruit. Is what you're usually losing. Boy, I can't help but think that I just. First of all, I could not find them. You really have to trade your eye. Once you find one, then you'll identify that color and a couple of little specks that are on it and the little head bobbing thing that they do. Yeah. And just do what Ken did, was tell her about with the petunia bud worm. Just take your pruners and go zip, zip. And it's pretty gory, but it sure
really
does
its
job.
Especially for the big ones. They bleed out all over the place.
They sure do.
And now, you're a new great-grandfather, actually, as of a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
James, our son, had delivered another baby boy. And when James was smaller, I used to pick off the green tomato worms by hand, put them in a coffee can. That's back when we had coffee cans. And I'd give them to the boys, going, here, boys, go enjoy these worms. They think you'd given them gold or something. I said, just make sure they're all dead by the time you get done. They go, oh, yes, okay, no problem. They'd play with them out in the driveway. They'd have game, all kinds of crazy stuff. They'd have a dozen of them or more in this coffee can because there's more than one on a tomato plant.
Yes.
There's several. If they get bad enough, sometimes you'll see the droppings. You'll see little black castings or caterpillar poop on the leaves, and you haven't quite missed a lot of foliage yet, but you're going, now that doesn't look right. I know I don't have dirt on my plants.
Right.
That's the caterpillars. You just spray them with the Captain Jacks right away, and you won't have this skeletonized issue.
And that's the dead giveaway. And if you catch it at that stage before they start eating.
Okay, so now Harold, tell us tell us about your garden. How many tomatoes do you grow, and you grow them in containers in the ground? Just tell us what are you doing out, and where do you live? You live out Granite Oaks, that area, Royal Oaks area, out towards the Granite Mountain.
Right.
Good growing area, or
Some of that is good soil out there. Some of it's excellent soil because the oak leaves over the years have composted and mulched, and some of the areas just heavy clay. Just depends on what they've done, whether they prepared the home site or what Mother Nature left you with when it was created. But what we find is that I made a raised bed is what I did. I brought in new soil. I brought in a mixture of soil and compost, put it in. Last year was my first year in there with that, and the tomatoes did beautiful. This year, I put them in, and they are just absolutely gorgeous this year, loaded with tomatoes. They're probably about 3 to 4 foot tall, very wide, and I have about, I started out with 7 plants, and I'm now down to 6 because I lost one early in the season for some reason, whatever. It just curled up its toes and died.
That's a good way to describe it.
It happens to nurserymen,
too. That's right.
But they are producing. I have 3 different varieties, and I won't go into what the varieties are because it's always fun to try different varieties because they come off a little different. They have different use, and they look a little bit different for table use, or maybe for canning, or maybe making some tomato juice, whatever you want to do with them. Yeah. Most people just have for fresh tomatoes on the table.
That's right.
And I always plant more than one variety in case there's a disease problem with them.
Well, I appreciate you coming in and sharing just tomato worms. People should put that on their radar because they are active, and including the most experienced gardeners, you're going to have them. So you need to know how to deal with them. So I appreciate you coming in and sharing that with the audience. You have been tuned in to Ken Lane and Harold Waters, master gardeners extraordinary in northern Arizona, and tomato worms, just how to have better tomatoes. We'll be right back with more on The Mountain Gardener.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
Hi, Ken here with the plants of the week and our timeless beauty, desert willow.
Large, fragrant burgundy and lavender flowers appear in big, bold clusters all summer long.
This unusual water selection is prized for its long bloom time without setting the usual seed pods.
The flowers are highly attractive to hummingbirds, 100% Arizona native, and just $49.
Waters Garden Center, 1815 Iron Springs Road in Prescott, where people who love their native plants to bloom, they love to shop.
Ouch! Aw, man, another rock! Hi, I'm Rusty. You know, the shovel you're destroying trying to dig that hole? Sure, I get it. You got these beautiful plants at Waters Garden Center. Waters asked if they could plant them for you. But no, you had to do it yourself, even though they would plant, deliver, and guarantee your plants for 2 years. I hope I don't end up like that old pickaxe. Ouch! Prevent yard tool abuse. Waters Garden Center. They plant, deliver, and guarantee.
You're listening to The Mountain Gardener with local expert Ken Lane. Mountain gardening can be challenging, but with Ken's tips, tricks, and garden advice, you'll reap huge rewards. Now welcome back to The Mountain Gardener.
We have got some really good classes coming up. If you're new to the area, you just aren't quite sure where to even begin gardening. It is totally different here in the mountains of Arizona than pretty much anywhere else in the country, but especially from those that are moving up from Phoenix, Palm Springs. We see a lot of Scottsdale, Tucson folks moving up, whether this is your summer home or more likely we're seeing folks retire here. They're tired of the heat. Or southern LA, the more tropical climates. Pretty much those areas, whatever you learned about gardening, you just need to erase, reboot, and start completely over. Put the new hard drive in, just kind of start from scratch. Because everything you learned, nothing translates up here. The plants don't, the timing doesn't. If you're from the Midwest, you're not used, we can do everything you did there, plus a whole lot more because we're so mild, the shoulders, you can start much earlier. You're starting in March into February for most of the elevation. Maybe not the White Mountains. You folks from Flagstaff, don't shoot me an email going, well, not here, Ken. I understand you're different. You're more like true Midwest. But here, most of us, really 6,000, 6,200 feet and lower, all the way down to 4,000, 3,800 feet or so. You folks are like the Midwest, only a lot more choices, a lot more agaves, a lot more yuccas. You've got a whole series of perennials that you can't even dream of growing in the Midwest, but you can here. So there, if you just don't know where to begin, come to a garden class. They're free. They're meant to be helpful so you can up your game immediately. And so every Saturday at 9:30, they're free at the garden center. They're in the back greenhouse. It's very comfortable. Plus, you get to hang out with folks that really appreciate, funky hats and colorful gloves, and just they know the garden. They know how to talk gardener. They're gardeners. That's why they're there at a garden class. They want to up their game. If that's not a thing for you, I work on Saturdays. I cannot get away, or I would rather golf than go to a garden class. Well, they're uploaded online, so you can watch them on our YouTube channel. So YouTube, Waters Garden Center on the YouTube, it'll pop right up. There's over 1,000 videos there. It takes us about a week to upload. So this week it's on roses. Which ones are the easiest to grow, where you don't have to be a slave, and then how to care for them. That will be uploaded by next weekend. You can watch it. And it's edited, so it's shorter. You don't have to listen to garden questions. You can just see the presentation. We've got different experts coming on each week. Next week, I've got Deborah Manderville with Natural Healing Garden. She is a chef extraordinaire and a gardener. She's coming to share how to use herbs from the garden to the table. She's sharing her favorite recipes, very interactive. We had her in last week, and it went over like gangbusters. Everyone loved it. So we said, Deborah, You've got to come back. You've got this great business. You're catering in town. You've got to come back and share some of this with local gardeners, and she is. I've got how to save seed. I've got friends in the seed business, and so we've got seed banks coming in. Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance, they're coming in to share what are they seeing with the seed source. There are less seeds now that you can even buy or grow that you had access to 50 years ago, 30 years ago, and now they've just been bred out. We're losing some of those varieties. They're actually going extinct. We no longer have access to that variety of tomato. It died with your grandparents. And we're now starting with different varieties. They're easier to harvest, easier to ship. It's actually a concern. And so we've got Bellstar and Bill McDormand, they're coming in from the Rocky Mountain Seed Alliance to share this. It's very, very interesting, and I'm hoping they'll give away some seed. I think they will, some like antique, older varieties of seed. They said they would. We'll see what happens. Words are cheap, but seeds aren't. So we'll see what happens with that. But that should be exciting. It goes on and on. WatersGardenCenter.com. Take a look at that. All of them are listed right there. Facebook, it's Facebook.com/Waters Garden Center. You can find that throughout the week. Lisa and I camp out here at Waters Garden Center. We love talking to friends about their gardens.
The Mountain Gardener, your source for garden advice right for the higher elevation of Arizona, with local garden expert and the Mountain Gardener himself, Ken Lane. Listen in every week for Ken's tips, tricks, and techniques that are guaranteed to make a difference in your yard this season.
I hate weeds. Monsoon rains are so refreshing, even my landscape comes alive, but so do my weeds. Stop weeds in their track in one simple step. Waters Weed and Grass Stopper spreads like fertilizer. It kills weed seed before monsoon rains allow them to sprout. No need to weed. It's safe for trees, even flower beds, and so much safer than that toxic waste the big box sells. Weed and Grass Stopper, it's just $24 and only found at Waters Garden Center in Prescott.
You've been listening to local garden expert Ken Lane, the owner of Waters Garden Center in Prescott. Join him each week as he answers timely garden questions unique to the area. He can be found throughout the week at Waters Garden Center, located in Prescott at 1815 Iron Springs Road. Thanks for tuning in to The Mountain Gardener.